This is the After Party, live with Kim McAllister. Pick a couch, grab a drink, and settle into the conversation.
Hey everybody, it is the After Party Live after the Mark Thompson Show. We got a late start today, and I know Tim Sika is sitting in the waiting room just waiting to talk about movies. And I'm telling you, after the week we've all had, thank God for Tim Sika. That's all I have to say. I need that. I need the movies. That's why I kind of started watching the Diplomat, that new series, season 2 on, I think it's Netflix. They just came out with season 2, and I kind of consumed it this week because I'm looking for that kind of way to mental health heal. What do they say? Self-soothe, whatever it is. And I think that's what Tim Sika brings, a lot of good advice on how we can do that and how we can kind of mentally take the break that we need. So without further ado, let me get my little picture up. It is At the Movies with Tim Sika. Here he is, my
Hi,
guy.
Kim.
Hi.
How
you doing?
I'm doing okay. I was going to ask how you were doing, but I think I kind of know.
Well, it's funny. My husband he's a work from home guy.
Yeah.
And sometimes he'll go to a coffee shop and set up, station there. It's for a couple hours, have some coffee and some breakfast and work. And you get to know people in the coffee shop. There's a group of old guys who meet every morning and they sit around one table. There's a couple ladies that sit and chat. And he said, and it's very evident that we live in a blue bubble over here. He said, everyone at the coffee shop is really upset. He said, they're all talking about how this is the worst week ever. It's so weird because there's so much of an outpouring on social media. All the news shows are like, what happened? What went wrong? It's so evident that everyone expected this to go a different way. Or maybe it's because I'm completely checked out of Fox News. I was kind of ignoring all the Trumpers, all the trolls that would come in to Mark's show and just thought, oh, thank God we're not going to have to deal with them. And now here they are. And we're going to have to keep dealing with it. And so it is disappointing. But what do you have for us to make sure that we don't ever have to think about that this week?
Okay. Well, let's just go there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's a few movies that are opening in theaters today. All of the films we're going to talk about this week have something in them to recommend. Especially the last one. The last one is called Small Things Like These. But our first movie is called Heretic, which... I know they've been running the trailer for this movie for weeks and weeks and weeks. Yeah, that's the poster there with Hugh Grant in the poster. And I think I sent you the incorrect title. It's not The Heretic. It's just Heretic. The Heretic is that weird, infamous sequel to The Exorcist, that the Heretic. Anyway, this is just Heretic.
Movie posters. I'm like, The Exorcist. I typed
Heretic. Yeah. Well, anyway, this one stars Hugh Grant in, for my money, what is really an Oscar caliber performance. He plays this reclusive Englishman who one stormy night, it's a horror movie for all intents and purposes, but yes, one stormy night, exactly. He's greeted at his manor house by two young women, both members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're Mormons, right? And both are on their missionaries, and both out, of course, to convert this man, played by Hugh Grant, who answers the door. And it so transpires that these two Mormon missionary women, that their biggest mistake is ever having entered the guy's home in the first place. And that is not a spoiler because all that's in the trailer. But basically what happens is that the Hugh Grant character verbally, mostly verbally, but then in kind of gruesome practice, he turns the tables, so to speak, on these young women when he poses the question to both of them, what do they think is the true religion? And so it begins as a kind of riposte, like a series of ripostes on the Mormon faith, turns into this deadly and twisted game of survival, let's just say.
Wow.
And safe to say that this is a horror movie. It's a different kind of horror movie in that its interests lie more in dialogue, like philosophy and back and forth discussion of religion and belief and faith and non-belief, more than it does on, gruesome violence. Although there is
Gore.
and gore. There is a bit of that. So, that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, what the movie is in essence it was kind of, this was my takeaway. It was a takedown on Mormonism in particular and religion in general, I think, although I also think that there might be something left in the movie for the religious viewer when all the dust in the body settles, should the religiously inclined care to look deeper. My problem with the film was that there's no way like this would ever or could ever happen. I mean, in all likelihood, it would or could never happen. I mean, anything's possible, but plot wise, the film just kept getting, in terms of contrivances, they just kept getting stupider and stupider. So that's my knock against it. But winning out in the end, and why I'm going to recommend it anyway, is because number one, it does some really interesting, or it makes some interesting philosophical and historical points about religion and the similarities of religions, I should say. And when was the last time audiences got served up a chunk of religious philosophy and history along with their horror? That's one thing that's interesting. And number two, the performances make Heretic worth seeing, all of which are at such a high level. Hugh Grant may be giving I think, his best performance on screen to date. He plays this like annoyingly eccentric and psychotic weirdo. Oh, he's just.
Is he really playing that person, or is that really who he is?
You know what? I think he's playing with the persona that some people have of him, and he's sort of like. But I've interviewed Hugh Grant in the past, and he was actually a charmer. At that time he's getting a little more cynical in his old age, but I think he's playing that off, and it's really effective. And the young women. The two Mormon missionaries are played by Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East. They're excellent. I've never seen them in a movie before. This may even be their debut, but they're really good too. And I guess I should add a third reason here. The tone of the film, the direction of the film, which is firmly and traditionally rooted in what we've come to expect from our horror movies, and is such that even though you're occasionally pulled out of the thing because of the total improbability of the situation, you stick with it anyway because you want to know. You're going to go, well, how the hell are they going to resolve this? So I for all those reasons, I recommend it, even though I had reservations about it. It delivers the scares. There's little tinges of gore, but it's this philosophical rant about faith and belief. Very strange.
You have me kind of intrigued by this one. Am I going to be disturbed by gore, like violence and grossness?
I would say, I'm with you on that. Every time I'm sitting down to a movie that I don't know much about, and it turns out like, oh my God, this is going to be gory, I just want to flee the room or flee the theater. So I'm answering it from that perspective. It didn't upset me the way most of these gore films do, because I would say there was maybe one or two or three scenes, but they were, I don't want to give anything away, but like when somebody's killed, they're just maybe stabbed through the stomach, instead of sliced and diced and that kind of thing. I mean, it's still a shock and you go, ooh, but you can take it. I mean, at least I could take it. So I don't know if that helps. Yeah.
All right, then.
Yeah. All right.
Let's move to this one. This is Merchant Ivory.
Yeah, this is a documentary about Merchant Ivory Productions. They're one of the longest filmmaking partnerships in the history of cinema. From I think like 1961 to 2007, the company, consisting primarily of Ishmael Merchant, who was the producer, James Ivory, whose picture is there, he was the director, Ruth Jabvala is the screenwriter, and Richard Robbins was their composer. They made, in that short time between 1961 and 2007, 43 films. By my math, that's nearly one a year. Films like A Room with a View, Howard's End, Remains of the Day, Morris, mostly period pieces and mainly British costume dramas. So yeah, throwing for the moment all objectivity out the window. I personally love these kinds of documentaries about the making of films and the people who make those films, which is the kind of movie, kind of documentary Merchant Ivory is. It goes into not only the movies Ishmael Merchant and James Ivory made, giving us these little making of histories of those movies within the movie, and interviews on camera with some of the stars of those films, Helena Bonham Carter, Emma Thompson. She won her Best Actress Oscar for Howard's End, which was one of their movies. And James Ivory himself, he's the only surviving member of the team. Who at 89, I think he was the oldest person to win an Oscar for his screenplay of Call Me by Your Name, and who is now 96. He's still around, and he's also interviewed on camera. It not only goes into the movies, giving us these little histories of how they were made for next to nothing, too, although you'd never know by looking at them. They're all so lush and gorgeously photographed. But it's also an examination of the people in the company. It gets kind of personal, and they were a group of people who were, for the most part, not only worked together, but actually lived together. These three men and this woman, they lived together. Lots of, if what the folks who participated in the making of the film are telling us is true, there was lots of openly dysfunction on the part of all these, these four people, because they lived together and worked together.
Sure.
But out of that came some really impressive cinematic art. I did not know that James Ivory and Ishmael Merchant were life partners too, which somehow escaped me. I never really knew that, or the public, I guess, for the most part, never knew that either. So that's discussed in this. Their composer Richard Robbins had a fling with Merchant. The company makeup was all in a way kind of incestuous. I mean, these are the kinds of tidbits we learned that make for a really compelling story. All of this inner as well as outer chaos, in other words, existed before, during, and after production on all these movies, basically, and from which sprang these glorious films. So, we learned what a wild and insanely risky producer Ishmael Merchant was. He was always robbing Peter to pay Paul. He was making people believe that he actually had the money, but didn't always have the money. He had this gift of charming the life out of everybody who worked on those films to get out of them what he needed from them. Sometimes, or many times, he got them to do things that they said they would never do, like working on another Merchant Ivory picture ever again. I think Emma Thompson was talking. She says, you do these movies, and she says it's all crazy, and then when it's over, you go, I'm never going to do this again. And then she winds up being in like 3 of their movies. So anyway, so this is a veritable catnip movie for movie lovers, this documentary, with beautiful clips from the films, fabulous interviews, and great insights into the creative process of the Merchant Ivory team. They were also some of the first, if not the first, group of filmmakers that actually made what were considered art films that were commercially successful. They had a very commercially prosperous company. I mean, it took a while, but and again, they always operated on low budgets. But I think it was Howard's End was there. They got 9 Academy Award nominations. Ruth Jabala has won a couple Oscars for her screenplays. It's just a really interesting story. If you're into film, and if you're not into film, I think you'll also find it compelling too, because there's one story after another, and you're going, holy cow, how did they even manage these things? And none of that none of that is seen on the screen. Just the beauty.
Is that company still operating?
No, they're not. I think they stopped in 2007. And again, James Ivory went on to, work on some other films. He won an Oscar for his screenplay adaptation of Call Me by Your Name. That was about 5-6 years ago. So no, it's no. That's why it's great that this documentary was
wrap
made,
it up
just for posterity. Yeah.
Sure. Wrap up the company is what I mean. Let's look at this one. Small Things Like These. I'm interested.
Yeah, Yeah. Okay.
Uh-oh,
This
should
is
I not be?
no. Yes, you should be. No, you should
Okay.
be. I'm recommending this movie too. This is a movie that's right up my alley. It's a kind of a quiet, somber, slow and internal drama, and it's a morality play basically. It's about a coal merchant, superbly played by Cillian Murphy, who's in the poster there. And this is his follow-up performance since having won the Academy Award for Best Actor last year for Oppenheimer. This is the next thing he's done. The story of this movie takes place in 1985 Ireland, and Murphy plays this emotionally traumatized, I guess, but also kindly and sensitive husband and Catholic father of 5 girls who, while delivering coal one day to the local convent, he begins to suspect that this nun's supposed training school for girls is in fact this cruel and abusive institution run and sanctioned by the Catholic Church, which later became known to the public as the Magdalene Laundries. And the Magdalene Laundries were run by cruel and abusive nuns designed for everybody, all the women, just for women, designed for quote unquote penance and rehabilitation. And they were places where wayward women in Ireland were sent, young women who were perceived as having broken God's law, pregnant out of wedlock, so-called wild women, or fallen women.
I think the first time I ever heard about these was from Sinead O'Connor. I think she
Yeah.
talked about them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, women that were perceived as uncontrollable, basically, they were sent to these laundries and basically worked to death and physically and mentally abused. And the church profited for decades on this system. Many of these women died while there and were buried in unmarked graves. Their babies were taken away from them by these nuns. Do research on the Magdalene Laundries. It'll curl your toes. The child abuse by priests notwithstanding, I think the Magdalene Laundries were probably one of the Catholic Church's worst hours in their checkered history. I should mention, just to provide some context here, maybe Sinead O'Connor, I can't remember. There was a 1998 documentary that chronicled many of these abuses. It was called Sex in a Cold Climate. And again, for context, in 2002, this harrowing drama called The Magdalene Sisters came out. It was directed by Peter Mullen. It's a superb film, but very tough to watch. The first time I attended a press screening, Kim, I walked out of it. It was so disturbing and upsetting. Eventually, I went back to see it at another press screening, and eventually I programmed the film for a film series I ran in the South Bay. But I'm digressing. It's a great film, The Magdalene Sisters, and a must-see for anybody out there tuning in. It's available to rent on Prime Video, by the way. Anyway, in this movie, small things like these. Thankfully, the abuses of the Magdalene Laundries, for the most part, they occur off screen, but they serve this dramatic purpose and a jumping off point for our main character, Cillian Murphy, for this crisis of conscience thread that runs through the picture, where and when he begins to notice things, when he delivers coal to these nuns, things that don't look right, feel right, and that mess with his head. He's thinking like, well, what is this? Why are these women acting so terrified? This is my church. Something seems awfully wrong. But because the church in Ireland at that time, maybe even still today, I don't know what it's like there today, they had blanket authority in Ireland. No one questioned what they did. They were feared, basically, and they controlled every aspect of people's lives there. Our main character, Cillian Murphy, he's afraid of questioning what to him looks like cruel barbarism being done to these young women in the name of Jesus. So the movie is basically about an internal journey, an internal struggle, and a kind of a reckoning of conscience. And I have to recommend this movie if for only its technical finesse and superb acting. Weirdly, this is, I don't know how I'm going to say this, because normally these kinds of movies with their slow unfolding pace really appeal to me. Weirdly, this one felt a little like anemic as drama. It's based on a book and so I suspect it reads better than it films because it unfolds very slowly, is very reflective in tone, with a bare minimum of dialogue being, I think, less about dialogue and more about behavior. And all that's there. I can't really, there's nothing wrong with it. I can't find any fault in it. It was hard for me for some reason to get excited about it. And maybe that's the wrong way of looking at it, but I recommend it anyway, because at its best, it's quietly compelling. And there are aspects to it which are kind of tough to shake. You know, yeah. So I don't know if that helps you decide whether or not you want to see this movie.
I found this article from the Irish Times. Sinead O'Connor says her torment as a victim of the Magdalene laundry.
Oh, she was there.
Yeah,
she was there.
Affected her life. She was a survivor of all of this.
Yeah.
She said these laundry workhouses for fallen women affected her throughout her life.
They were basically prison. They were basically prisons.
She was 14 years old when she was sent to Sisters of Our Lady Charity Laundry in Dublin after she was labeled a problem child. This particular laundry shut its doors in 1996. So, you look at her life and her public displays with mental illness. And you look back at a 14-year-old girl being sent to this kind of horror chamber. And you realize that she's really a victim of, the things that happened to her in her life. You can see why she was the way she was, right? And still managed to create beauty in the world despite it all.
The what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. A point that you made. I just went blank. I'm probably thinking about what I'm going to talk about next. But
I just thought that was interesting.
Oh, I know what it was. These laundries made a lot of money for the church, and they did finally close. I think in like 1998. This is what I wanted to say, but they didn't close because what they doing was like cruel and morally reprehensible, but they stopped making money. So that's why they closed them.
It's all about the money, Tim.
All about the money, isn't it?
Come on.
Yeah, really. Anyway, this movie,
right?
Well, this small things like these is, I mean, for Cillian Murphy, you got to see it. He is an incredible actor. He does more with his face and not saying anything. I mean, it's powerful. It's just, he's so powerful in this movie. Anyway,
let us talk about the next movie on the list, which is called Disclaimer.
Well, I'm trying to, follow it. I'm trying to follow in the footsteps of my friend and colleague, Michael Snyder, who sees so much stuff, and I'm going, okay, I got to start like watching streaming series and talk about those. So that's what this is. I'm about halfway through with this excellent Apple TV Plus miniseries. It's called Disclaimer, and it's a psychological thriller miniseries. It's written and directed by Alfonso Cuarón, who won the Oscar for Best Director for Gravity. And whoa, in this show, in Disclaimer, Cate Blanchett plays this prize-winning documentary journalist who discovers one day she gets this book in the mail.
Okay.
She doesn't know who it's from, but she starts reading it, and in it, she recognizes herself as a prominent character in this novel that reveals the shocking secret that she's tried to keep hidden for 20 years. And I love this show. It is so smart. The story itself is revealed in a nonlinear fashion. It goes back and forth in time. And to say any more would be to rob people of the pleasures that are here to discover when they watch it. It's kind of it's a satisfying show too to watch. I'm finding it satisfying to watch now because of these uncertain times we're living through, because it's basically saying that no matter how hard you work at obfuscation or suppression or misdirection, that the truth in the end will always come out. So Great writing, great cast. In addition to Blanchett, Kevin Kline is in this. He's always good.
Oh,
Sacha Baron Cohen, you know Borat,
of
crazy
course.
Sacha Baron Cohen. He's here in a serious dramatic role.
Wow.
It took me a while to realize that was him.
Uh-huh.
And once again, it gives credence to my theory that the really great comedians, when given the right material, can be equally
Yeah.
great at playing drama as they are playing comedy. He's
Totally.
amazing. Yeah, and anyway, so this is a smart and intelligent drama miniseries with surprises and twists and turns and reveals galore. So check it
We
out, After Party devotees.
we've seen it though with these comedians that have this great dramatic power. Robin
Yeah.
Williams comes to
Oh,
mind.
yeah.
Oh,
Of
Adam
course.
Sandler has surprised me in this
Yes.
regard, right?
Yeah.
You have actors like Will Smith going from the Fresh Prince of
You
Bel-Air
got it.
kind of comedy and rap, and then turning around
Yeah.
and doing some great dramatic roles. So, yeah, comedians somehow I don't know, they have it. They have it.
Yeah. No, and it's funny too, because the converse isn't always true. Like, well, Marlon Brando's an exception, but you look at Montgomery Clift, and I don't even think he's ever even I don't even know if he could do comedy, but he was a great dramatic actor. But I find that there more and more of the great comic performers, boy, when they're, and there people talk about Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey made a television movie. I think it was in the 80s or 90s. He was a young actor. I think it was called Doing Time on Maple Drive. He played the alcoholic brother in this family where the younger brother was considered like the great perfect child and everything. And he turned out not to be. And Carrey played his alcoholic brother, and he was brilliant. So hey, anyway, I'm sounding redundant here, but I just think that given the right material, look out. These funny people can be really tragic.
John Watson says Bill Murray did a few dramatic films.
Yeah,
Well.
Bill Murray too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's another one. I always think of older actors too, like Jack Lemmon. Jack Lemmon was hilarious on film, and yet he can make a movie like Days of Wine and Roses, where he plays an out of control alcoholic and be brilliant in it. So yeah.
All right. And your classic movie recommendation of the week. Everybody ready?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
This week.
I hope I don't. Yes, and I hope I don't lose any viewers here. This movie, Goodbye, Mr. Chips, is a musicalized version of James Hilton's classic novel, Goodbye, Mr. Chips. It's not really considered a classic, but it's one of my very favorite films and a very underrated one, which time has been very kind to. In other words, it's one of the better musicals of the late 60s, and I'll explain that.
Right.
The 1939 version of Goodbye, Mr. Chips starred an actor named Robert Donat as the schoolmaster Arthur Chipping. That's considered a classic. Donat that year actually triumphed over Clark Gable playing Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind for the Best Actor trophy, which in retrospect seems kind of crazy. But this 1969 musicalized remake, I think, is the best telling of the James Hilton story. And it's a story about a beloved schoolmaster. He teaches at this boys' what's that called? The school, prep, not like a prep school, the British boarding school. Yes, the British boarding school, and his young, very opposite in temperament and personality wife. And the 1939 version has its acolytes, but to me, it's kind of dated, but opinions differ on that. Anyway, this 1969 version, which I'm recommending people see, it's available to rent on Prime Video, by the way. It's directed by Herbert Ross. It stars Peter O'Toole and Petula Clark, who would have made more Hollywood movies if the two that she made had done better commercially. She's a wonderful actress, a great singer. The music and lyrics here are by Leslie Prickus, and the music is arranged and conducted by none other, guess who? John Williams, who went on, of Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark and E.T. fame, among others. And this is, Kim, if nothing else, it's a beautiful and touching love story. I think that's why I like this one more than I like the others, because they really focus on this relationship between this kind of stodgy professor, schoolmaster, and this really vivacious In this version, they make Catherine out to be a music hall performer for obvious reasons, because Petula Clark starred in it. But this movie was released when the Road Show movie musical was in its death knell. It was a box office flop when it came out, but is really to be admired because it seemed to be trying at least to be a movie musical that was more suited to the changing tastes of moviegoers, because it wasn't done in the traditional book musical form, which is to say that the characters didn't break out in song, but rather the songs were all mental reflections of the characters and quote unquote sung in the minds of their respective characters, if that makes any sense. It was this movie actually that Barbra Streisand, when she made Yentl, she directed and starred in Yentl, she used this movie as a template for how she wanted to musicalize that story. So anyway, it's a beautiful film. It's a lovely love story. Peter O'Toole is magnificent. I think he got an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor in the title role. Petula Clark is charming and as enchanting as ever with that optimistic singing voice of hers. And this is a movie that always lifts my spirits every time I watch it, which is why I happened to watch it on, what was it, Wednesday of this week. Mm-hmm. Because it helped me get through the day in a weird kind of way. Yep. So anyway, I really recommend it. Not a lot of people know this film and have seen this film, but you can, rent it for a couple bucks on Amazon and watch it.
Okay. Well, that is uplifting. Thank you for bringing that, because that's what people are looking for right now.
Yeah,
right?
I love that picture. Oh yeah, that kind of epitomizes this movie. Really, and these two people so in this movie, they so loved each other. It was just, anyway.
I like it better because I found the movie poster, but it kind of covers up you, and so people can't see your picture.
Okay.
I like to just
that's okay. They don't need. Yes. I have a face. I have a face for radio anyway.
No,
so.
Well, so do I. But we move forward, right? But
we do. Yes. Well, eventually, I'll get there.
So let's recap it. Heretic. With Hugh Grant, you called it a different kind of horror movie. You said Hugh Grant is great, but you just couldn't quite suspend your disbelief in what you called a plot that kept getting stupider and stupider. But you recommend this because you said it has interesting philosophical points and it has really good performances. So you're recommending Heretic.
Yeah, good summation.
All right. Well, Merchant Ivory, you said it is a compelling story. It is catnip for movie lovers. But even if you are not a movie, really into movie being a movie buff, you recommend this anyway for everyone. You would really enjoy this movie.
Kim, have you ever seen A Room with a View?
I watched part of it, I think, and I couldn't quite get into it.
You couldn't get into it, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. I was going to say, hey, you should check it out, but if you already have, okay. Well, maybe at a later date.
Check it out again.
Maybe at a later date. Yeah.
That stars who's the woman?
Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah, Helena. I was going to say the actress from Harry Potter. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I interrupt you all the time. Small things like these. You say you are recommending this. Superb acting, slow unfolding pace, maybe a little too slow sometimes. You said it's hard to get super excited about it, but you're recommending this because you called it quietly compelling.
Yes.
And then you've got me all turned on for Disclaimer. This is a streaming series from Apple TV. You loved it. You said it's satisfying. You love that the truth will always come out. You said it's great writing, great performances, and it's smart and intelligent. That's Disclaimer on Apple TV. And lastly, you're throwing down Goodbye, Mr. Chip, the 1969 version, a musical, and you say this is going to lift our spirits in a time when many of us likely need that. So well done.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Let's all in unison lift our spirits if we can.
Absolutely.
We're gonna need to have that attitude in the days and weeks and months to come.
Nick says, I really love Tim's reviews. That's awesome. Thank you for the nice compliment.
Thank you, Nick. That's really nice of you to say. Thanks so much. Yeah.
Cranky across the pond wants to know if you've seen Goodnight, Mr. Tom.
Goodnight, Mr. Tom. No, that doesn't even ring a bell. Is that a
Yeah.
real title? Good night, Mr.
Good
Tom?
night. No, he says, "Have you seen Good Night, Mr. Tom, Tim?"
No.
Pardon me. Maybe
No,
you should put it on your list.
I'm making a note of it as we're
Okay.
talking. I just jotted it down on my calendar. Okay.
A lot of nice messages for you. Mama says musicals aren't for her. Some people can't get into the musicals.
Well, though, I get that, and I think
Mhm.
they made this movie. They made this movie for people that couldn't get into musicals because
Ah.
the way the songs come on, they're just like it's what the characters are thinking. So it's not awkward or weird in that way. Where some people go, I don't like. Somebody will be walking down the street and they'll just be they start to sing and they sing at people they don't know, and that's weird, and I can't get into it. I think this is a musical that for people that can't get into musicals, I think they should give it a try. They might be surprised.
Mm-hmm. I
Yeah.
like it. Yeah. Oh, and look, we got Nick throws down a contribution today. He puts in, here it is, $20. Thank
How
God for
nice.
Tim and Tim. I'm telling you, I think a lot of people are like, we just need a moment. Here's Julie as well saying needed the after party today. Yeah, we need this moment where we're not thinking about the harsh stuff in the world. So
and I think we have to keep in mind too. Okay, the election was, well, I have a lot of thoughts on this, but we don't have time. The election was lost, but there are still 67 million of us that are of a certain mind. So we're not alone. We're not alone. There's millions and millions of people that are, there that we can attune to and keep our spirits up, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Tim. You're awesome. Thank you for your movie reviews and for coming through every week.
You're welcome, Kim. I think you're awesome too. So we have a mutual appreciation society going here. Admiration society going here. Yeah. Okay, so I'll talk to you next week.
Tim Sika. Yes, talk next week. Bye, Tim.
Okay, Kim. Bye-bye.
Bye. Tim Sika, everybody. I love that you guys love him as much as I do. Thank you for that. You said some really nice things directed toward Tim today, and I just can't thank you enough. It just makes this such a pleasant place to be. Susan saying, love Fridays with Tim, and that this is a good show. Cranky, thankful for it as well. Tim and Kim, that's right. We should do a show together all the time, right? And Nola Fidian says, the only musical I really like is A Little Shop of Horrors. Right. Well, and what's the what's the other one? The one at midnight. Come on, Tim. People watch it at midnight. What is that one?
The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Yeah, people love that one too, even though they don't normally like musicals, right? Okay,
yeah,
sorry,
right.
I yeah. You back in there.
All right. Okay.
Bye. Yeah, that I can understand that. Yeah. B.A. Ware says, I'm a musical person that hates musicals, but I'll give this one a shot. You know what? It's good, especially if you're finding yourself in need of a pick-me-up and a little lift. Why not? If Tim says it lifts his spirits, then I'm willing to go for it. So there you go. Here's Judy with a lot of lips. John says, I always like Music Man and Fiddler on the Roof. Yeah. Rev P reminds me, yes, Rocky Horror Picture Show. So, okay. Nola Fidian says, and the only music I really like is a Little Shop of Horrors. Yeah, I think I said that already. So anyway. All right. Thank you for all the comments about Tim. And again, my thanks to Tim for being here. I know it's a little past time, but I have another video I want to show you guys. Because again, with the needing of being lifted up, how about this? This is an elephant that has really embraced how to give itself a shower. I think I have this video ready. Okay, here it goes. Here it is. This elephant has learned really well how to use a hose as a tool.
We studied water hose tool use, manipulation, and showering behaviors in Asian elephants at the zoo in Berlin. The female elephant Mary displayed sophisticated hose showering behaviors. She showed lateralized hose handling and preferred to shower her right side with the hose. When showering sides and front, Mary usually grasped the hose behind the tip, using it as a stiff shower head. She very systematically showered her body and coordinated the...
I'm going to mute her because this is all great, but I just want to see the elephant flicking water around. The elephants learned to use the shower tool really effectively. The elephant's name is Mary, and they call her the queen of the shower. And there you go. We knew elephants were smart. We knew they could use tools. We knew they could do things like this. But there she is. And how cute is that? Look at her go. because we needed this video today, right? You know what else we needed today? I'll tell you this. We needed this one. This is a video of a bat running. They took these bats and they infused them with blood. They're trying to see why scientists or how these bats could be so successful at running on treadmills. And I'll show you the first video I have, or the first picture I have. You can really see the face of this bat. Uh, my husband and I disagree on this. He thinks bats' faces are cute. He worked at a wildlife place, a rescue place, where people would bring in, wildlife creatures they found in distress. And he's always thought bats were cute. And bats, I kind of liken to snakes and spiders. They freak me out. I mean, I don't wish that they weren't in the world, but I wouldn't want to hang out with a bat. When that lady had a bat hanging from her shirt that she accidentally took home from a zoo in the UK, I mean, if that was me, I would have freaked out, right? He's like, no, bats are cute. Okay, so I can't get behind the whole bats are cute situation. I can appreciate this bat is very interesting looking. So here is a video of a bat running on a treadmill. They're trying to measure what helps bats move faster. And before I start the video, I will say this vampire bat, these are one of the only bats that really can run on land. They're looking at whether fruits or lean protein or blood or what's best for these creatures to eat. Anyway, I digress, because check this out. They taught these bats how to run on treadmills. Here it is. You see it? It's not doing on the screen like it is on my computer, which is weird. Let's try it again. There's a lag. Yeah. And so he's running on the treadmill. He runs about 30 miles an hour. I mean, he's moving pretty fast. He's moving at a pretty good clip, this vampire bat. But this is I think, a pretty interesting study about vampire bats. And it shows the special way that they need blood to use blood, and how they use blood for energy. The footage we just saw has this bat that kind of uses its wings to sprint alongside in a plastic box up to 30 meters per minute. So that's different than 30 miles an hour, but 30 meters per minute. And again, the vampire bat is one of only a few species that can skillfully maneuver on land like this. And they use this ability to maneuver on land to quietly approach sleeping prey before they make an incision with their razor-sharp teeth, usually to cattle or pigs and chickens, and take a little bloody blood. That's what they did. This is a study out of Canada, and researchers were looking at the carbon dioxide these bats exhaled on the treadmill. They found traces of amino acids. They were looking at the bat's main source of energy being their protein-rich blood meal, rather than the stored carbohydrate and fat primarily used by other animals. And what they found is that it showed how strongly metabolism can be shaped by a specialized diet. And there you go. But there's the bat running on the treadmill. I've been trying to get this story to you for a couple of days, so today I will do so. Here's a picture of an old red barn. Picturesque amongst the fall leaves. Here's another one. The old red barn. Most farms had an old red barn, right? This one's kind of pretty. Well, now there's a new take on the old red barn. They're looking at trying to spruce it up. The old red barn in 2024, getting a bit of a different look at this Oregon winery. They wanted a barn, they needed an outbuilding, and they wanted it to be different and cool. And so here you have it, the new red barn. What do you think of that? Do you want to go back to the old red barn? Or is it time for us to move into the new red barn? I thought the design was interesting. It's a metal cladding with this red color derived from this popular wine blend at this winery. It's created this angular kind of building. It is still red, but it's very modern looking. If you're listening to the podcast, it's got this kind of triangular shaped edges on the roof, circular windows. This is the new Red Barn. It's at Corollary Wines, which is in Oregon, and they said they wanted to create a base of operations and entertaining space on this abandoned site on their winery in the Willamette Valley that had already had a bunch of trees removed, and they wanted to put something there. So this architecture company called Wachter was brought in to create an economical structure that would represent the company and create a scenic place for tastings and business operations. They said something they would do in an old barn that was on the property. An attractive, all-in-one structure that could serve as an outpost there. They wanted to be economical in scale and use materials that set the tone for future development and capture an individual, unconventional, innovative spirit of corollary wine. So they chose this box rib metal siding because they liked that it was easy to maintain and that it's used frequently in this area, so it was easy to get a hold of. And then they powder coated it in a red hue, the same color as one of the wines at Corollary. Cuvée 1 is the name. And they think this building really stands out, adds a pop of color as a focal point for the estate, and is a good thing for the region. This roof is called a butterfly roof, with each sloped aspect representing two parts of the plan. So they also have this porthole window. Inside, there's a recessed wall that leads to the enclosed space and French doors for the fancy tasting room. So I don't know. I kind of like the romance of the old barns better. But I understand, that with fires, maybe a metal clad building is a little better for us. Here's what it looks like inside. It's kind of fancy inside. Got a conference table in there and some gathering spots. It's very red. It stands out even from far away. What do you think of the new Red Barn? Are you liking it? Judy says, I tend to like modern architectural design, but not this. Jennifer says that's called International Orange. B.A. Ware says fireproof is going to be critical for future Red Barns. Nullifidian says this one looks more like a Taco Bell. Nancy says, no. Old barns are charming. I wouldn't call this building charming. Interesting. I mean, it captures my attention, even if I don't find it to have the romance and, the charm of an old barn. Meredith says, I prefer the old Red Barn. It has more room inside. Mama doesn't like the pointiness of this one. She's not a fan of that butterfly roof. The old Red Barn, she ain't what she used to be. Isn't that the truth, Nullifidian? I thought that was interesting, though. And I'll give you this as a last story. How about this? BTS. I was going to use this in news on the Mark Thompson Show because of Albert and his love for K-pop. But one of the singers from BTS is going to, and I have a question for you regarding this story. His name is V, and he's going to redo Bing Crosby's White Christmas. So he's the South Korean singer's name is V, who's going to remix the old classic White Christmas. He says, and here's this thing. I'm so grateful to have had the chance to be featured in a song with my all-time favorite jazz artist, Bing Crosby. He said, I grew up listening to his song. It's been a long, long time, countless times a day. V says, I feel incredibly fortunate and honored to have sung along with on White Christmas and the voice of someone I consider an idol. Well, that's nice. Is Bing Crosby a jazz singer? I mean, He's kind of a singer in my grandparents' generation, perhaps. Sings on the old classics. I still love his voice on the old classics. White Christmas. Is he a jazz singer, though? Maybe he is, and I just didn't realize it. Correct me. Set me straight, my friends. Is Bing Crosby a jazz singer? I thought he was just kind of a pop singer of his day, right? Phineas says no, he's not a jazz singer. Jazz artist Bing Crosby. Okay, thank you. Thank you, because I really was like, God, how did I miss that? Gordon's like, no. Liz is like, no, he's not. Teacher Lori, no, he's a big band singer. Okay, thank you. Walnut Creek says he's considered a jazz singer due to phrasing. Really? Okay, see, I didn't know that. Meredith is like, no. Rev says crooner. Is he? Did he have a violent streak there? I didn't know that. Yikes. Phineas agrees with Teacher Lori with the big band. Gordon says, yeah, a pop singer, a crooner. Yeah, maybe there's some, when you delve into the musical history and musical analysis, there's something to what Walnut Creek has to say about the phrasing and specifics. I had this conversation at the dinner table last night because Julia's in jazz band at the high school, and she's very, musically inclined. My son loves to compose music on the piano. There's always music at this house. And so I brought it up, and Julia loves big band music and the old music. I think she's like my grandparents she's, who she is? Grandma Julia reincarnated. That's what she is. She's named after my husband's grandmother. So I brought this up, and everyone kind of looked at each other for a second. And she said, I could see that. I could see that. And my husband said, yeah, I could see that too. And I thought, God, am I the only one that can't see it? I don't know. Yeah. Walnut says it's when he was singing in the 1931 to 41 era. Okay. Oh, is he a Bay Area guy? My cousin lived next to his house in Hillsboro, says Phineas. Mo Direct says lyrical cadence and timing is what makes him a jazz singer. All right. And John says, isn't big band considered a form of jazz? If that's true, I didn't know that either. Yeah. BA says, Google AI says, Bing Crosby was a jazz singer, a crooner, and a popular entertainer who sang in a variety of genres, including traditional pop, jazz, and easy listening. All right. Maybe it's just those classics are the only ones that I really know him for. So, yeah. Great talent, very abusive to his family, says Eileen. Oh, that's awful. Just goes to show you can be talented and have all the money in the world, and it doesn't make you a happy person or a good person, right? Be Aware says, yeah, big band is jazz. So there's that. Well, thank you for setting me straight. And I'm sorry we got such a late start on this show today, but as we had all decided, this show starts when the Mark Thompson show ends. So I tried to start it right away, but I know that we didn't get to a lot of things planned. But that's okay, because I have them all for Monday now. So that works out. A couple really big thank yous today. Julie threw in a $5 super sticker and always leaves the loveliest comments. Julie, not Julia, like my Julia. You're my Julie. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Wes, via PayPal, popped in with a $25 contribution to the show today. A good reminder to tell you that the PayPal link is at the bottom of the show description, and it is also in the After Party Live About tab on YouTube. And thanks to Wes, the link is live, so all you have to do is click on it. And thank you, Julie, for the contribution, and Wes as well. Nick, I showed this earlier, but what a nice compliment and what a nice contribution to the show. A 20. Thank God for Kim and Tim. And thank God for you too, Nick. Thank you for being here and always being such a positive person on the show. Really appreciate it. Luis throwing down a 5. Kim and Tim Fridays, mahalo. Mahalo to you. Aloha. We got the aloha spirit flowing big time on this show. That's something I'm really proud of. So thank you, Luis, as well. And always your comments are awesome. So I appreciate it. Julie says, I really needed the after party today. I have to tell you something about that, Julie. And it is, I was reading this, I might have alluded to this yesterday, but I was reading this article about how important our communities are right now, our groups. And I really feel like this is that for me, and I don't know if it is for you, but it's kind of, I think about you guys and I wonder, because you get to know people, right? I wonder what your reactions to things are. I'll read a story and I'll go, oh, I wonder what Julie thinks about this. Ooh, teacher Lori is going to love this one, right? And so this group has really become part of that community for me, and I'm really, really thankful. What a privilege to get to be here and do this show with you guys every day. And I really feel like it's more doing it with you and not for you, because of the interaction and the relationships everyone has formed. So enough of my sappy girl baloney, right? Thank you though for that. All right. It is time to go pick up the kids from school, and it's time to make sure that you have a good weekend. We're going to leave this week behind, and we're going to focus on calming, preparing, and knowing that it's going to be okay because we've got this group and this outlet, and everything's going to be all right. So I wish I could cue the Bob Marley song, but I cannot. All I can do is cue this song called Into Space, which some people seem to really like. I had toyed with flipping it to a song that my son composed on GarageBand, but I don't want to upset you guys if you like this one too much. All right, have a good weekend, everybody. Make it a really good one. I'll meet you right back here on the YouTube on Monday. Bye, everybody.
The After Party Live would like to thank the following contributors and viewers like you.
Everybody to the UK.